He let his friends mock me for years, my weight, my dreams, even how I spoke. I stayed quiet, smiled, played the cool girlfriend. Then one night I laughed too, while reading out their secrets one by one with receipts. He looked shocked. I felt free. I used to laugh too. At first, it was to blend in. Then it was to survive. They'd say something, Gabe with the loud punchline, Jonah with the smug smirk, and I'd throw my head back, add a "you guys are ridiculous," and pretend it didn't feel like a punch to the gut. It was always about me. My voice, my job, my body, my opinions. I trained myself to laugh before the silence could catch up, before Logan looked uncomfortable, before the moment turned into something real. Logan never told them to stop. He'd glance at me and give that sheepish grin, like he knew they were out of line but didn't want to mess up the vibe. "They don't mean it," he'd whisper later, brushing it off like spilled salt. But I always did. I meant every forced laugh, every tight-lipped smile. Every time I swallowed a comeback and let myself be the cool girlfriend, the chill one, the one who could take a joke. I thought that's what love was, making room. Letting things slide, choosing peace over pride. But it wasn't peace. It was quiet humiliation, repeated in group settings, served with drinks and laughter, logged deep in my chest until I forgot how to speak without weighing every word for mockery potential. I'd walk into rooms and already be braced, already rehearsing detachment. That's the thing about long-term disrespect. It doesn't come in slaps. It comes in smiles, in nudges, in jokes that aren't funny but everyone laughs at anyway. And you start to laugh too, until one day you hear yourself and realize the sound coming out of your mouth doesn't belong to you anymore. It started with a joke about my voice. We were at Gabe's apartment, Logan, Jonah, a few others, beers in hand, music too loud. Someone asked what I did for work, and I told them I was taking classes to become a voice actor. Before I could finish explaining, Gabe cut in. "Oh, like cartoons?" He scrunched his face and mimicked a high-pitched squeak. "I mean, you do kind of sound like a chipmunk on Red Bull." Everyone laughed. Logan chuckled too. Didn't touch me, didn't look at me, just smiled like it was harmless. And I smiled too, because what else was I supposed to do? I didn't bring it up that night, or the next one. I told myself it wasn't worth it. That Gabe was just being Gabe, that Logan hadn't meant to laugh, it just happened. But after that, I stopped talking about voice acting. I quit the class 2 weeks later, not because of Gabe's voice, because of Logan's silence. He didn't defend me, didn't pull me aside and say, that was out of line. He just let it hang there, let the mockery land and settle like dust. That moment taught me something. It wasn't safe to share my dreams in that room. And once you learn that, it's hard to unlearn it. So I stayed quiet, and they kept laughing. He left his laptop open. I wasn't snooping, I didn't need to. The screen was right there, lid half cracked, lit up like it was waiting to be found. Group chat, the bench. The name alone told me everything. At first, I just scanned. Names, a few memes, dumb banter, inside jokes I didn't care about. But then I saw mine. "TED Talk strikes again," Gabe had written. I swear she could make ordering pizza sound like a political debate. Then Jonah, she probably narrates her dreams out loud too. "Logan, how do you sleep?" Laugh emojis. Then Logan's reply, "You get used to it. Just keep nodding." That one didn't sting. It gutted. Not just because they were mocking me, I'd grown a thick skin for that. It was Logan's tone, like he wasn't with me, like I was an inside joke, not his girlfriend. I scrolled more, past jabs about my self-help books, about my meal prep, about the way I talk when I get passionate. There was even a comment about my weight, Jonah again, and nothing from Logan, not a single defense. Not one "hey, chill." He'd been reading all of it, laughing along, letting them pick me apart like I wasn't real, like I was just a story they told to entertain themselves. I closed the laptop, sat in silence. And in that moment, I stopped believing Logan was just conflict avoidant. He wasn't avoiding conflict. He was avoiding accountability. I told next day. Sat across from her in our usual cafe, fingers wrapped tight around my mug like I needed something to hold onto while I said it out loud. She didn't interrupt. Just listened, face still, lips pressed together like she was holding something back. When I finished, she set her coffee down and leaned forward. "That's not teasing. That's social abuse dressed as banter." I flinched a little. It's not that serious. She raised her eyebrows. They mock your work, your voice, your body, and your boyfriend lets them? That's serious. I didn't know what to say, because part of me had already minimized it. Wrapped it in layers of boys will be boys, and they don't mean it, and Logan's just not great at confrontation. Tasha shook her head. You think you're keeping the peace, but what you're doing is swallowing yourself one joke at a time. I stayed quiet. Then she said it, the thing I hadn't let myself admit. You laugh because it's the only way they let you stay. That one hit deep, because it was true. Every time I smiled through a comment, every time I played along, I was bartering my dignity for proximity, trading my voice to sit at a table that treated me like a prop. And Logan, he was holding the door open. I brought it up that night. Didn't come in swinging. Didn't throw the laptop or demand a confession. Just sat next to him on the couch and said, I saw the group chat. He blinked. What chat? The one with Gabe and Jonah. The bench. His face shifted, not guilt, just irritation. Like I'd interrupted something he didn't want to deal with. You're not seriously upset about that. I didn't say anything. They're just messing around, he added. You know how guys are. There it was, the line. I'd heard versions of it before. They're just teasing, they don't mean it, don't take it so personally. But this time I didn't smile, didn't nod along. I just stared at him and said, do you ever tell them to stop? He paused. That half-second beat before denial, where the truth sits too loud to ignore. They don't mean any harm, he said again, weaker now. I nodded. But I didn't let it go. Because this wasn't about the jokes. It wasn't even about the chat. It was about the slow erosion of self-worth I'd let happen, with him standing quietly beside it the whole time. He didn't argue, didn't apologize. Just sat there, uncomfortable, hoping the moment would pass like it always did. But it didn't, because I was done playing cool. I was done making room for people who laughed while I shrank. A few days later, he invited me to dinner. Same guys, same place, a routine I knew by heart. Just us and the crew, he said, like it was supposed to sound casual, like everything was fine. I said yes. He didn't notice the difference in my tone, how even it was, how still. There was no edge to it, no threat, just calm. I think that's why he didn't see it coming. Because when you've trained someone to believe your silence means forgiveness, they stop looking for the storm. I texted Tasha that night. Dinner's happening. She sent back one sentence. You ready? I stared at the screen for a long time before typing back. I've never been more ready in my life. This wasn't going to be a scene. It wasn't going to be some teary meltdown or shouted confrontation. It was going to be something slower, colder, more surgical. Because I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I was just done swallowing the cost of being quiet. Tasha came over the night before. I had my laptop open, files neatly organized, screenshots, chat logs, a few voice notes I'd saved from late-night rants Logan had forgotten I ever heard. She sat cross-legged on the bed, scrolling through the folder, her face unreadable. Then she looked up. You sure? I nodded once, not out of spite, out of certainty. Tasha didn't smile, she didn't need to, she just handed me her phone. Record it. I blinked. What? If you're going in calm, stay calm. Hit record before you sit down. You don't need it for revenge. You need it to remember what it felt like to finally tell the truth. I hesitated, then opened the voice memo app. Named the file Dinner. Tasha handed back my phone and said, You don't have to yell to burn a house down. She wasn't wrong. People always think the damage comes from rage. From slamming doors, breaking dishes, screaming in parking lots. But it doesn't. It comes from precision, from facts. From someone looking you in the eye and naming what you thought you'd buried deep enough to never surface. I didn't want to be dramatic. I wanted to be undeniable. Dinner started like every other one. Same table, same jokes, same wine glasses clinking like nothing in the world had shifted. Logan sat next to me, hand on my knee under the table. Not affectionate, performative. Like he wanted credit for including me, like that alone should have been enough. Gabe was already loud, already mid-story about some woman at the gym. Jonah laughed too hard at something that wasn't funny. They barely acknowledged me, except to pause when I refilled my own glass instead of waiting for someone else to notice. The first jab came quick. Gabe, of course. You're quiet tonight, TED Talk. Battery dead. Jonah snorted. Logan chuckled under his breath and said, "She's just focused." "Right." I smiled, the kind that doesn't reach your eyes, took a slow sip of my wine. Then I placed my phone on the table face down, voice memo running. And I said clearly, "Actually, I've been meaning to bring something up." Gabe raised an eyebrow, Jonah tilted his head. Logan froze just for a second like his body sensed something his brain hadn't caught up to yet. I looked at all of them. Calm, measured. Not a crack in my voice. "Let's talk about what you all really think of me." Silence, forks pausing midair. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small, folded stack of paper. Just a few quotes to start, nothing big. Yet. I unfolded the first page like it was nothing more than a napkin. Looked straight at Gabe. "She's got a nice face if you crop out the rest. Logan's a saint for tapping that every night." The table froze. Gabe laughed, high and awkward. "What the hell is that?" I didn't blink. "You in the group chat, January 16th, 2:42 am. His jaw twitched. "You're kidding." I set the page down on the table between us. "You think I wouldn't recognize the way you type? You abbreviate you as you but spell aesthetic correctly every time. It's weirdly specific." No one laughed, Jonah coughed. Logan sat stone still, mouth slightly open. I took another sip of wine, let the silence sit. "Your girlfriend was out of town that weekend, right?" I asked Gabe. "The one you said was too vanilla to notice you were bored." He blinked fast. "You're making this a bigger thing then." I raised my hand, not high, just enough to cut him off. "You all made it bigger, I'm just reading." I turned to Jonah next. He looked pale already. One message down. Plenty more to go. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I turned to Jonah next. Gave him the same stillness I gave Gabe. Let him squirm before I said a word. Then I read, "She acts like she's better than everyone because she reads books and makes salads. If I wanted a lecture, I'd go to HR." Logan shifted beside me, slowly, like he was realizing this wasn't going to stop. Jonah tried to laugh. Come on, that was a joke." I raised an eyebrow. "Was it?" Because the next one says, and I quote, "I'd rather sit through a company seminar than hear another one of her vegan TED Talks." Gabe muttered something under his breath. I didn't look at him. Jonah's face had drained of all its fake charm. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. "I brought you all dinner," I said, folding the second paper neatly and placing it on top of the first. "Poured your drinks. Sat through years of this." No one moved, no one spoke. And that was the best part. The shift had happened. The room had flipped. They weren't laughing anymore. Now they were just hoping I'd stop. But I wasn't done. Because the next message wasn't from Gabe or Jonah. It was from the one sitting beside me. Logan said my name like a warning. Soft, low, the kind of tone you use when you're trying to stop something without making a scene. I didn't look at him, just opened the final folded page. "Don't," he said. I smiled without warmth. "Why not? I'm just matching your energy." I turned to face him, calm, clear. Just with better documentation. His mouth opened, probably to say it wasn't serious, or it was taken out of context, or they were just venting. But he didn't get the chance. Because I read it. "She's gained weight but pretends she hasn't. Says she's confident but it's performative. Honestly, I've stopped listening when she talks." My voice didn't shake. I read it like I was reciting directions to somewhere I no longer needed to go. Gabe looked away. Jonah sank back in his chair. The silence was dense, not shocked, but exposed. And Logan, he stared at me like he was seeing a stranger, but I wasn't someone new. I was the same girl they'd been laughing at for years. I just wasn't playing along anymore. I saved his message for last, because it deserved the weight. Because it wasn't just a joke or a side comment. It was the confirmation. The proof that everything I'd felt, the slow shrinking, the quiet erasure, hadn't been imagined. I looked at him, held his gaze, then read it slow and even. "I miss when she was cool. She used to laugh at everything. Now she's always trying to prove she's worth listening to." I folded the paper in half, then again, placed it beside my wine glass. He didn't speak, didn't move, and I waited not for an apology, for comprehension. I wanted to see it land. "You used to laugh at everything," he repeated, almost to himself. I nodded. "I did." He tried to reach for my hand. I pulled it back gently. "Do you know what it takes to keep laughing, while people chip away at you in front of the person who's supposed to protect you?" He didn't answer. I looked around the table. at the faces that once mocked me openly, now afraid to make eye contact. I stopped laughing, I said quietly, because I finally started listening to myself. And that silence, the one they'd used against me for years, was mine now. Owned, controlled, weaponized without raising my voice. I didn't owe them noise, I owed myself the truth. No one touched their food. The plates sat there, steam long gone, wine halfway warm, everything frozen in that heavy, sour stillness. I leaned back in my chair, folded my hands in my lap, and waited. Not for drama, not for redemption, just to feel what it was like to finally be in the room without shrinking. Logan stared at me like I'd grown horns. Like he couldn't figure out how I'd flipped the script without shouting. Gabe was still looking at his phone, pretending not to be rattled. Jonah had gone ghostly pale, eyes locked on the tablecloth like it might give him an exit. No one spoke, and that more than anything told me exactly who they were. I reached for my wine, took a sip, then calmly said, "You all had so much to say when you thought I'd never hear it. Funny how quiet you get when I say it out loud." Still no one moved. The silence wasn't uncomfortable for me anymore. It was power, finally shifted. For once, I wasn't the one who felt small. I was just the one holding the mirror. I placed my napkin on the table like I was finishing a business lunch. No rush, no theatrics, just quiet, final motion. Then I stood. Gabe looked up, like maybe I'd say something kind to soften the blow. Jonah glanced toward the door like he might beat me to it. Logan just sat there, stunned, still trying to process who I'd become. I looked at them all one more time, not with hate, just with clarity. "You had a lot to say behind my back," I said, voice low but steady. "So I figured I'd say it to your faces." I paused, no one jumped in. I gestured to the untouched plates, the expensive wine, the curated night. "Hope the food's as bitter going down as you all were." No one laughed, I didn't expect them to. And I didn't need an apology or a rebuttal or someone to run after me. I just walked out, not in anger, in freedom. I didn't make it 5 steps past the front door before I heard him behind me. "Wait," Logan said, breathless, like he just realized the fire was real and not a drill. I didn't stop walking. He caught up in the parking lot, hand hovering near my arm but not touching it. He knew better. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone." I turned to him, slowly. That was his first sentence, not "I'm sorry." Not "I didn't know you felt that way," just "you embarrassed me." I let out a quiet breath, not a sigh, a release. "You let them mock me for years," I said. "My voice, my work, my body." He shook his head. "It wasn't like that." I cut him off. "You let them turn me into a punchline, and you laughed too." "I didn't mean." "I begged you with my silence," I said, sharper now. "You just didn't bother learning how to hear it." His mouth opened again. No words came out, so I finished it for him. "You're not upset that I spoke up. You're upset that I finally matched your energy and made sure everyone else saw it too." He stood there stunned. I turned back toward my car, didn't look back. Because when someone only notices your absence after you leave the room, they were never really looking at you to begin with. I didn't slam the door. I didn't throw the car into reverse or peel out of the parking lot like a scene in a movie. I just got in, shut the door softly, and turned the ignition. Windows down, cool air on my face. I scrolled until I found an old playlist, the one Logan used to make fun of. "Too dramatic," he said. "Too much sad girl energy." I pressed play anyway. First track, a song I hadn't let myself listen to in over a year. Too honest, too sharp, too much like truth when I was still trying to make excuses. Now it felt like a soundtrack. The lyrics rolled through the speakers, steady and sure, and I rolled the windows down just a little more. There was no adrenaline, no triumph, no thrill of revenge, just quiet, just clarity. I didn't check my phone, didn't wonder if he'd follow. I knew he wouldn't. Not really. Not because he didn't care, because he didn't know how. And I wasn't going to keep teaching someone how to treat me while they actively refused to learn. I drove to Tasha's. Didn't cry. Didn't replay the scene. Just sang along to my own music, full volume, and felt every word settle into my skin like it belonged there. Tasha didn't ask any questions when I walked through the door. She just opened it, took one look at my face, and stepped aside to let me in. Her apartment smelled like lavender and something baking, probably those frozen croissants she kept on standby for emotional emergencies. I dropped my bag by the couch, towed off my shoes, collapsed into the cushions like I hadn't been breathing properly for months. She didn't talk, just brought me a blanket, handed me a mug of something warm, and sat beside me. Not touching, not prying, just there. We sat like that for hours. Not a single word. And it was the most seen I'd felt in a long, long time. Because there's a kind of healing that happens when someone doesn't ask you to perform your pain. When they just hold the space for it, steady, unshaken, already believing you. I leaned my head back and let the silence stretch. It didn't feel empty. It felt like recovery. 3 days later, I checked the chat, not our chat. The bench, the group thread where I'd been dissected, nicknamed, laughed at like I couldn't possibly read between the lines. It was dead. Last message was from Logan. Can we talk? No one had replied, no gifs, no punchlines, no casual debrief of what the hell happened. Just that one message sitting at the bottom like a stone no one wanted to pick up. I didn't open it, didn't click to see if he'd followed up privately. There was nothing left to say. When people show you they're entertained by your humiliation, you don't owe them your closure. You just give them your absence. And that's what I did. I left the chat open for another minute. Not to feel anything, just to let the stillness confirm what I already knew. Then I closed the tab, powered off the screen, and poured myself a drink. Peace doesn't always come loud. Sometimes it's just the sound of nothing where noise used to be. Brunch was loud, not in volume, but in feeling. Different table. Different people. People who didn't flinch when I spoke, who laughed without a trace of cruelty, who leaned in when I got excited about something ridiculous or niche or too long-winded. Tasha was there, of course. She watched me the way a guard watches a gate after a war, not tense, just aware. I was telling a story, nothing major, just some absurd moment at work involving a broken elevator, a coffee spill, and me pretending to be calm when I absolutely wasn't. And they laughed, real laughter. The kind that says we see you and we like you here. I laughed too. But it was different now, not performative, not polite, not a tool to survive the room. It was mine, unfiltered, undiluted. No edits for anyone else's comfort. I caught Tasha's eye across the table. She raised her glass slightly. I smiled back. That moment, that one right there, was the answer to every question I'd swallowed in silence. I hadn't been too sensitive, too serious, too much. I'd just been surrounded by people who needed me small to feel big. Now, I could take up space and laugh fully at my own damn volume. Thank you for watching. Please do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I love you all.